Dan Riccio, Apple's longtime head of hardware, is out. But not really. He's going on to run new and so far very secret projects. And John Ternus, the rising star of the engineering division, is all in, like at the executive team level. It's yet another huge shakeup at the very top of Apple's leadership chain, something that may have once seemed eternal, but really has been changing and growing almost every year now for over a decade. But what about this? What does this specific change really mean for the future of Apple hardware, like the iPhone, the iPad, the upcoming M-series Macs, and everything else that Apple has planned? Well, sponsored by Ting. Real quick, YouTube shows me that only a small percentage of you watching now are actually subscribed. So if you like my videos, hit that button and we can build the biggest and best community in tech together. It is an interesting time for Apple, to say the absolute very least. Last August, they announced Phil Schiller was leaving his post as the omnipresent head of marketing to become an Apple Fellow, just Wikipedia it, to focus on the App Store and events. And we saw how that played out just all the way through September, October, and November. Previously the constant presence in front of the cameras on the keynote stage, he became the driving force behind them. And taking his place as Senior Vice President and iPhone Pro presenter was Greg Joswiak, Jaws, an engineer and someone just as comfortable explaining radio mechanics at the deepest levels as he is go-to-market plans for some of the most popular products on the planet. And I'm pretty sure we've only just begun to see how he intends to drive those products at Apple. And that was just one of the most recent changes, transformations even, at Apple's executive level. Because in June of 2019, Johnny Ive, Chief Design Officer, the man whose hands and talent guided the crafting of everything from the iMac to the Apple Watch, Apple Retail to Apple Park, left to create his own indie design company, Lovefrom. And his vice presidents, Evans Hankey on industrial design and Alan Dye on human interface design, well, they moved under Jeff Williams' purview, who is decidedly not a designer, but is a decider, and so far seems to be helping that team execute on just an ever-increasing lineup of products. And Jeff Williams, who took over operations when Tim Cook became the CEO in 2011, and who himself became COO, the Chief Operating Officer, in 2015, has gone on to not only lead Apple's health efforts, including the watch, but now design as well, with Sabi Khan stepping up to back him up as Senior Vice President of Operations since June of 2019, which is terrific, legit terrific, because every Apple Senior Vice President, from Eddie Q on services to Luca Maestri on finance, has just more on their plate than the laws of physics should allow, like more than a journalist at CES has from the free buffet. And all of this was just a few months after former head of retail, Angela Ahrendts, left to spend more time with her family, and head of people, Deirdre O'Brien, added retail to her organization as the new senior vice president of both. And with a background in ops, she's just been ideally situated to help Apple with the growing pains that come from an incredible, explosive growth in customer scale, and also now with the challenges Apple Retail and all of us are facing during the pandemic, often, incredibly, staying better informed and taking swifter, more proactive measures than almost every local government and region. Angela Ahrendts before her was key to integrating online and retail at Apple and putting customers first in the Apple Store experience, even if it meant fewer attention-grabbing lineups come launch day. She joined Apple in October 2013 after the brief bananas tenure of John Browett, one of Tim Cook's earliest hires and fires, who left in October of 2019 at the same time as Scott Forstall, who'd been running iOS and gave us just everything from Carbon to the App Store. And all of that, iOS and OS X both, were then unified under Craig Federighi as Senior Vice President of just all the software engineering, which now includes iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, and tvOS. He'd been at Next, but left shortly after Apple bought them. Yes, I said what I said. Only to return because he knew where all the code was buried, like 3 levels deep. At the same time, Bob Mansfield got a new group, Hardware Technologies, which eventually moved over to Johnny Cerrugi, who joined the executive team as Senior Vice President of that org in December of 2015, and has gone on to just completely revolutionize silicon at Apple and basically change the face of the entire industry with the M1. And for more on that, hit the link in the description. In October of 2017, Catherine Adams replaced the retiring Bruce Sewell as Senior Vice President of Legal and Global Security. And just a few months prior to that, Bob Mansfield somehow snuck back into the building at Apple to take over Project Titan, the secretive automation and automotive group from Dan Riccio, whose plate was, like I said, more than full already, in his case with engineering Apple's existing hardware products, especially the all-important iPhone. And just last month, Mansfield re-retired, this time handing Titan off to John Gianandrea, who left Google to lead what he seemed to have considered just more ethical machine learning at Apple in April of 2018, and joined the executive team as Senior Vice President of Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence Strategy, a new org that I personally think will be absolutely as important to the next decade of Apple as Johnny Srouji's Silicon team has been to the last decade and will continue to be going forward. And now, Dan Riccio is leaving his spot on top of hardware engineering, and John Ternus is taking over. John Ternus, who's been leading Apple's terrific new Pro Workflows team, who presented the redesigned iPad Pro back in October of 2018, the new modular Mac Pro in June of 2019, and that industry-shaking M1 launch I mentioned at the end of 2020. Now, I don't think it's like when Craig Federighi took over software engineering and features that had been held back because they were too nerdy or too complicated for the iPhone, like AirDrop, suddenly got the big green light. But I do think that John Ternus is a big part of Apple re-embracing their Mac-specific nerdiness, the exact thing that led to the Pro Workflows team, the retconning of the Mac Pro, and, if reports are accurate, MacBook Pros that are about to get just that much more pro again. Link in the description. And if John Ternus can continue to propel that forward, that retro future chic Apple's been positively strutting lately, then to say all the Mac, all the iPhone, all the iPad, and all the other assorted atoms at Apple are in the safest of hands is a statement that's just so far under, it's like Mariana Trench level deep. And Dan Riccio, again, Apple won't say what he's moving on to. A lot of early hot tweets had the word car in them. But given Riccio moved on from Titan years ago and John Gianandrea has just taken over there, that to me makes the kind of sense that just really doesn't. But I think Dan Riccio still runs Apple's virtual and augmented reality project. And given the recent reports of what Apple's planning to do there, what with VR headsets and AR glasses both lined up for the next few years, I think it's more than possible Apple decided they needed someone dedicated to them completely, at least until they come to market. And I've done a whole video on that as well, link in the description. And the person who successfully made sure the iPhone hardware was ready to ship each year, every year, year over year, is just exactly the person you want doing just exactly that. Even and especially if it turns out to be something beyond VR, like, who knows, an Apple hot tub, Yo Siri, Bubbles. Either way, if the early rumors on headset pricing are true, you should start saving up now, especially on your cell phone bill with Ting. Whether you only want a little data or just all of the data, unlimited, Ting has the perfect plan for you and for your family. You can get talk and text for just $10 a month, data from $15, 5 gigabytes for $25, unlimited for $45. Whatever you need, just go to rene.ting.com to check out the plans and see how much you can save. And you get access to the best nationwide coverage in America on pretty much any phone, from the latest iPhone 12 to the Galaxy Flips and Folds, whatever you can put a SIM card in. And you can keep your existing phone, keep your existing number if you want to as well, because the next generation of Ting Mobile is here. And seriously, go to rene.ting.com to see how much you can save and get $25 off. Click on the link below or go to rene.ting.com and get $25 off. And clicking on that link really helps out the channel. For more, much more on Apple's upcoming products in 2021, hit the playlist above, and I'll break them all down for you from iPhone to Mac and back again. Just the playlist above, and I'll see you in the next video.